Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we have a small but mighty panel. Tonight we are looking at those bands that were only together for one lineup, and we wish they had recorded more. Let's get to the panel. Let's do it. Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we have a small panel, but a mighty panel. And look who's back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Guitar Hack. Welcome, Hack. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice
He's
to
like
see
a
you
regular on this program at this point. And we also have loyal Patreon member and a man who came up with this topic, and I'm going to turn it over to him, Peter Jones. So, gentlemen, nice to see you. How are you? And like I said, I'm going to throw it over to Peter Jones and let him do the introduction. This is his topic, and Peter Jones, take it away.
Very good. And it's great to be here. The topic is, within a band, there's a lineup that only released one record. Now, we'll also include if they did one record and maybe a follow-up live album, but you kind of mostly if it's one studio album. So these are just kind of one-offs. And so I wanted to go over some of these bands that I was personally disappointed that I only got one record out of this lineup. So that's what prompted me to create the topic. So if you want me to go ahead and start, this artist has a long, huge catalog. They've changed members a lot. So there's probably even more albums than this one that would qualify. But to me, this is the one that was most important and the one that I wish the most had done another record. 1988, Mr. Malmsteen releases Rising Force with Joe Lynn Turner on vocals. And it's my favorite Malmsteen record. It's the most accessible. Joe Lynn Turner is absolutely in his wheelhouse. This is a great listen from top to bottom. And it's Malmsteen the way I wish Malmsteen would always be, with a really melodic, strong, competent singer, and just let him play. And so this was very disappointing when it wasn't long before they were all out, a la Ritchie Blackmore. He just got rid of everybody. They were all gone after this and never to be heard from again. So that is an album that I listen to and go, oh, what if? Because that could have been a really strong ongoing band. And it certainly would have helped his record sales, because this is by far his most successful record. So not surprisingly. So
I'm wondering, I'm going to throw it out there. If
Sure.
This was such a successful record, why would he clean house and get rid of everybody? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know why.
Ego.
Oh, because it was so successful?
Well, because it was successful, not necessarily because of him.
Gotcha.
Joe Lynn, in my head, gets all the credit for this. And he even was really good on the earlier records. Mm-hmm. He could sing those well.
It's Joe Lynn Turner.
Well, he's a great singer.
Yeah.
And, he gave them some cred. It's not unlike Mr. Nugent. Every time Derek is there singing, people kind of perk up and go, okay, I'm going to take him a little more seriously now. And that Malmsteen record was that way. It's not too poppy. It's heavy as heck, but it's melodic. And there's nothing wrong with heavy melodic. Not in my book.
That's what you would want, ideally. So,
well, and then it gives him a really good framework to play his solos in. Mm-hmm. And you don't get as much listener fatigue.
Exactly.
When it's just onslaught barrage, of
noodling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Spooging is what we call it.
Don't get me started. That noodling thing just drives me up the wall.
Yeah. And if it's taken up by melody and singer, if you can't hum along or sing along to Crystal Ball and Deja Vu and stuff like that, you don't like melody. So yeah. I think that's a great album. So
cool. Awesome. Excellent. I didn't even think of that one, but that's a great choice.
Neither did I.
All right, Peter. Awesome. All right, let's throw it over to Mr. Hack.
Well,
Hack, what's your first choice?
It's funny because I have a common thread. I only have the three, but I have a common thread that kind of runs through all. There's a commonality between all of them. But the first one I want to talk about is a band that's, unfortunately the main member Lemmy has passed. Talking about Motorhead, they put out 20, I don't know, 23, 24 albums, something in that ballpark. But the one time they brought in Brian Robertson, ex Thin Lizzy, and they put out Another Perfect Day, 1983. And he did stir things up. The songs got a little more complex, some more chord changes, some multiple lead breaks, a lot more melody went into some of the songs. I'm not saying they totally morphed. I mean, it's still Motorhead. The formula is still there, but just with a lot of extra trimmings and shiny bits. It just they did an amazing. It was an amazing combination there. I'm just going to mention a couple of tracks here, as my memory is terrible, so I have to write things down. You had there's the typical Motorhead Shine. There's a track on there. It's your straight 1-4-5 riff. That's typical. But then you got songs like Back at the Funny Farm, more complex arrangement. You got multiple lead breaks. You got some really nice intro chorusy guitars on Dancing on Your Grave to start. That chorusy riff at the beginning and then it carries through. You'd never heard that from Motorhead. Another Perfect Day. I mean, the title cut, man, that could have been a Lizzy song, or even more so, I Got Mine. That is total Thin Lizzy. That is the best song on the record. That's like the lost Thin Lizzy song that was never recorded by Phil. Rest in peace. But yeah, it just added a whole sort of new, more melodic, complex arrangements, more involved, chordally and melodically, just added a whole new dimension to the Motorhead sound. And I thought it was pretty cool, but yeah, it was a one and go. And that was it. So
do you think that Brian Robertson is underrated and underappreciated?
I think Brian Robertson is his own worst enemy, is what I think.
Well, yeah, he's a self-destructing person.
Self-destructive guy, yeah. Because he could have done a hell of a lot more than he has done. I mean, his run in Motorhead wasn't very long either. Listening to him outside of Thin Lizzy and writing a song like I Got Mine, like that's an amazing song. Like that could have been on a Thin Lizzy record, like or solo if he went solo and he's producing that type of that quality of music. And some of those riffs and melodic soloing and all of that, I mean, there's just the guy has it. He just like I say, he's just his own worst enemy,
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think it's and I'm just throwing the question out. I'm not dogging Lemmy. I'm not dogging Motorhead. Do you think it would have been better had those songs or those riffs been used on a Thin Lizzy album instead of a Motorhead album?
Well, I think it expanded the Motorhead sound a lot. It's like I said earlier, it still has you're not going to mistake it for a Thin Lizzy record. I mean, vocals aside, it still sounds like a Motorhead record. But
right, got you.
Yeah, I would have loved to hear this stuff on a Thin Lizzy record. I mean, that one song I mentioned in particular, that is top and bottom a Thin Lizzy song. It's got all the trappings of a Thin Lizzy song. So yeah, like I would have liked to hear that on a Thin Lizzy record, that track,
I'm just throwing it out because it just sounds like it's so incredible that nothing against Motorhead, but we all know, I know what Motorhead sounds like. I don't know this particular record, but I do know how it was with Thin Lizzy with him in the band. So I'm going, if this is that great, it's just in my brain, I'm going, God, it's just kind of a shame that it wasn't on a Thin Lizzy record, That's all.
No, I agree. Yeah. that would have been a really that would have been a highlight track on any album that they'd done. So for
Well,
sure.
I think the point I was making is that some people's arguments about their perceived demise of Lizzie is directly correlated to when Brian Robertson leaves the band.
Yeah.
That's, as great as the players that replaced him, Gary and
John Sykes,
White and John, there was something missing. And I think that something that was missing is the essence that Brian brings as a player.
It's all about the chemistry.
Yes,
and he did break you. Come on, you cannot deny that. When he was in the band, everything was just, it clicked. Nothing against Gary Moore. Absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a chemistry that makes these bands, these classic lineups click. So, yeah, I get it.
I'll speak more on that when I talk about my next pick.
Oh, I may have jumped the horse there. Sorry.
Right. We're keeping it loose here on the Contrarians tonight. We're just talking music, and it's really all about turning you on to stuff.
That's
so
right.
We do want to hear from you in the comments. So if there's anything that you want to bring up, one album, the band was only together for this record, we do want to hear from you. We'll read the comments. Please leave a comment. So, and please leave a like. And for God's sakes, check out Guitar Hack's channel. And if you haven't subscribed to his channel, please do. So I'll let him talk about that later. But let's go on to the next pick. Peter Jones, you're up.
Well, this is a band that change is not a stranger. But I think legacy-wise, people have a short memory and don't remember because it was all very early in their career. They've certainly stabilized, and for a long period of time, the lineup has solidified. But this is a band that they didn't have a repeat lineup until their fifth album.
No.
Wow.
Now, when I say the band, you're going to go, oh, yeah, I guess that's right.
You're saying the fifth album repeat line. Wait a minute. I'm thinking about it. Oh, Iron Maiden.
Oh.
Okay.
They had a different lineup on their first four records.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Each one creates a certain feeling with me. And of course, I know historically that it was followed up with something that I also love, but especially at the time, to hear that lineup wasn't there anymore was troublesome. We get to Killers. Adrian Smith has replaced Dennis Stratton. And to me, all of a sudden, I'm like, here it is. This is the lineup. And I'm like, let's just take this and run. But it's a one-off. And it happens to be my favorite Iron Maiden record. But one and done. And it's like, oh, really? Yeah. So we're going to tie it in because and they did it again. One and done. Now, this comes out. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. What in the world is this going to sound like? I have no idea. Invaders fires off, and I'm like, okay, I'm all right.
He's all right.
This is okay.
Yeah.
And this is the one of the two that I wish the most had stayed together. And now I love Peace of Mind, and I could even do Peace of Mind because it's just the same thing one step further. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they're solid all the way through Seventh Son. This, to me, is the most potent lineup, in my opinion, because I'm such a fan of Clive Burr.
Yeah.
And I love Nico, but there's just something about this lineup that was so tight and so perfect and is just so enjoyable that I would have just loved to have seen where they would have gone. Now, hindsight, what it is, maybe we don't get Where Eagles Dare, because maybe that's not something Clive would be very good at. And that's okay. But when this came out, and I was like, okay, this is really good. I like this Bruce guy. We're good. And then it changed again. And to some, a drummer switch may not be too big of a deal. Well, it's me. So yeah, it is. It was a huge deal. And I missed Clive, and I've missed him ever since he left. So Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast would be that one-off for me that kind of hits the target the most.
So were you familiar with the Samson stuff with Bruce?
No, I wasn't. And so I had no idea what Bruce's voice was like. And, like a lot of bands, that opening track is kind of the do or die. Well, longboats have been sighted and the evidence of war has begun. Many fighting men. I'm like, we're good. We're good. Whoever this guy is, and I was not, like I said, I was not aware of his previous band. So I was just like, okay, we're all right. And then, of course, I had the same nervousness. And then I heard Where Eagles Dare, and I'm like, I'll be okay.
I mean, when you first initially, what was your gateway album? Was it Killers? What was your first?
No, we discovered, me and I say we, my next door neighbor, Joe.
Okay.
And we were the listening buddies, and we did everything together. We'd go to the record store literally once a week, usually on weekends. We'd ride our bikes. It wasn't too far from the house. Mm-hmm. His last name was Zarowski, so he started at Z, I started at A, and we'd go through all the miscellaneous bins because that's where you found the bands that didn't have their own card labels yet because they only had one record. You saw the cover to Iron Maiden, and of course we met kind of somewhere in the middle, so I'm probably coming around while he's coming back up the other way, and I pulled it up and I showed him, and he's like, what in the world is that? We look at the back, there's some cool concert shots, and we're like, well, this can't suck too much.
It looks great.
Hey.
And we're like, we're in. So we found it not too long after it had been released, and I'd been with them ever since. So
I'm just curious. I know we're keeping it loose, but you were a kid. You find this record. You buy it because of the cover.
Yeah.
So when you played it, what was your initial thoughts? Was it one of those moments where you went, "Oh my God, this is different"?
Yeah.
Peter, you hear those records and the sky part, the waters part.
Yeah.
It's like one of those moments. Was it one of those moments?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There was nothing that I had heard before was anything like it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really been nothing that they have done in their own catalog since. It's very punky. And I know Harris doesn't like using that word, but sorry, Steve, it is.
Kind of like a blend of, yeah, exactly.
It was very different than A Priest and those other bands. I mean, they couldn't have been more different. And there was just something about it. And of course, as soon as you start hearing Steve's bass playing, that's a whole new level. That's something you've never experienced from before.
Thinking about when that came out, though, punk is probably on its way out, but still that influence.
Yeah.
You couldn't deny that there is that element on that record.
Yeah.
It just is at the time, even though they might deny it, but everything influences everything.
Well, and it was tracks, the ones that really kind of hit me the most are tracks like Remember Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That were, we use definitions probably too much in our lives here, but it was almost a little bit proggy. It was slow down, speed up, heavy, soft, and then it changed directions for a very aggressive solo section, thundering drums, and then back to this cool vocal. And I love Paul's singing. I've always loved his singing.
Yeah.
And so, it's stuck. And of course, now we were really, really looking for Killers when it came out in May of '81. We were ready for it. And of course, that album cover is even cooler. So we're like, okay. And then
checks all your boxes, doesn't it? Oh, check.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then of course we saw Martin Birch on the back. And now I'm even more into it because of my history with Purple and everything else. So I'm just like, this is so.
Eddie on those album covers was a big eye grabber for sure. Yeah.
Genius move. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Peter Jones. Hey, we're just keeping it loose here. We're having talking music. Let's throw it over to Hack. What's your next pick?
All right. Well, this is going to run opposite to what you guys were saying earlier about not having Brian Robertson and Thin Lizzy, and I said there was a common thread, and the common thread in all my picks is Thin Lizzy. And the next one I'm picking is Thin Lizzy with John Sykes and the
Okay.
Thunder and Lightning record, the last album, the last official Thin Lizzy album. And holy shit, what a crazy record. I mean, the title track, right off the bat, just pummels you, and it's got so many amazing tunes on it. This is the one, the Holy Wars, Bad Habits. It's got that, but the topper for me, I love Cold Sweat. That riff is just unrelenting. It's so cool. And Sykes is just on fire on this whole album. And, him with Scott Gorham, they do a little bit of that harmony solo here and there in the record. But, I mean, the songs on this record, I think are really good. I think that they still stand up. It's a good group of, batch of Thin Lizzy songs, so much so that when I did a Thin Lizzy show, this I picked as my favorite Thin Lizzy album. As controversial as it is, this is my favorite record of
It's
Thin
kind of
Lizzy.
contrarian, ladies and gentlemen.
Very contrarian, yeah, but I absolutely love this record, and I love Sykes playing on it. And honestly, I mean, outside of maybe the Whitesnake record, I think this is Sykes' best playing on I mean, the Blue Murder stuff. I don't know, man. I dig his playing on this a lot more than the Blue Murder stuff. The Blue Murder stuff really, I don't know, doesn't work for me. But in this context with this band, he really, really, bloomed on this record. And just, yeah, it's fantastic. Love this record.
So the material, the songwriting is all.
Oh, it's killer.
It's killer. All right.
It's a killer record. I mean, you've got the sort of the more mellowy stuff. Was it Sundown?
Yeah, Sun Goes Down.
Sun Goes Down. Thank you. See, I'm terrible with song titles. That's why I have to write things down. But yeah, there's some of that, but there's some nice rock and stuff on here. It's just a really good blend of everything that Phil kind of does, songwriting wise on this record, and it's just catchy songs. I don't think there's a dog on this record. I mean, every song is good or really good. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. There you go. Well, hopefully we can turn you on to this stuff if you're not familiar with it. So that's what it's about. All right. Thanks, Hack. That's awesome. Let's throw it over to Peter Jones for his next pick.
I intentionally kind of didn't say anything while you were after it because you kind of segued into where I want to go with my next one here. And, we will preface, as we always do, these are our own personal opinions, folks. There is no right or wrong.
Is this yet a contrarian opinion, Peter?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. This is an album from a band I absolutely love. To a point.
Duh.
And this is that breaking point for me. Having done a series of albums with a very stable lineup, they come together for a one-off, which is my absolute favorite record qualifier to follow from this band. And that band is Whitesnake.
Okay.
And that album is Slide It In.
Mm.
And my big asterisk, the UK version only. I don't like, won't listen to, and don't care for the US version at all. I don't like John Sykes. I've never liked John Sykes. And
Hack, hide your ears. I mean,
it's all right. It's all cool.
For me, it was, first of all, it was hard to see that Ian Pace was out. And I thought, oh, okay, that's not so good. Well, so who we got again? Well, Martin Birch is there still. Okay, cool. Well, who's on drums? Well, Cozy Powell. I'm like, oh, okay.
You're okay with that. Okay.
Okay with it. To me, this is where the Whitesnake that I love, all through that blues era, all through that early period, stopped existing. And this is the 38th parallel. There's Whitesnake before this, and there's Whitesnake after this. And I'm not a fan of Whitesnake after this.
You don't like commercial Whitesnake, is what you're trying to say.
Do not even remotely. This is like I said, my favorite studio Whitesnake album. I think every track on here is perfect. I like the drier but easier to listen to mix on this. The drums are way bigger on here only because John Sykes, like him, love him, dislike him, whatever, he has a certain tonality, and that tonality takes up a certain part of the sonic spectrum. And it is kind of masking. Things are smaller around it because the guitar takes up a lot of room, and it's very forward in the mix. This is a drier, cleaner, more recessed, but still very punchy and impactful mix. And Cozy's drums on here are just mind-blowing. I can hear his bass drum head vibrating after he hits it, which is just perfect for me. So this is where it kind of stopped. I wanted this lineup to keep going, but it was not to be. Dave had no interest in having these guys move forward beyond this. Cozy stays around, Neil Murray comes in, but that's short-lived. And of course, by 87, it's it's a who's who of what, who's playing what, who's touring, who's in the band, who's not in the band. It's kind of a just revolving door.
Revolving door, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a mess. So this is a seminal record on a whole bunch of fronts, but this is where Whitesnake died. And just a small little thing, it's the last time they used the snake logo, which I think is badass.
Yeah, because they totally abandoned that.
Yeah.
It's like they'd lost some identity, but of course they sold a lot of records. I can't hold that against them.
Commerciality is the name of the game in a lot of cases, but I don't make money when he makes money, so I only care about what it sounds like.
Okay, so you only like the UK mix.
Yes.
So tell us what about the US mix you don't like? What is it about that? What is it that just disinterested you? I'm just curious.
Well, and this is kind of the same thing that ties in, because I remember the day that we got Thunder and Lightning. It was my buddy Ken and his roommate, Gary. We were at college. I'd gone up to the record store that day. We got it. We brought it, came back to his room, put it on. And I will say, for years, I was like, hey, this is really cool. Mm-hmm. But it wore out really fast. And all of a sudden, it just had no legs for me. And what I feel is that John, there's a band sound, and then all of a sudden John has to come in kind of over the top of it like a Tommy gun and just kind of shred spray all over the top of everything, which kind of just lays waste to everything that was underneath it. And
so do you almost like hear the record and you listen to him coming in and it's almost like an afterthought, or it almost doesn't fit the
perfect example is Thunder and Lightning sounds great when he's riffing, doing the main riff, and then all of a sudden they get to a solo and it's pick squeals and it's, Reed calls them those varooms. He's doing a zillion of those things. I think noodling
comes back into my mind.
His tone is right on the edge of just a little scratchy. It's okay, Hack. I think it's
Hack's gonna have a connection.
I think it's like,
okay.
To me, it's like raptor claws on a chalkboard. It's just like, okay. And it doesn't fit. And I'm like, I'm listening to the Whitesnake songs, and I'm going, no. And it just kind of muddied the mix up. And I was just like, no, it's too away from what I was used to and comfortable with. It's not bluesy anymore. Now it's more, I hate this term. I mean,
cookie cutter?
Hair metal-y. It's kind of more hair metal-y. And I'm like, no, it just has never worked for me. So
I was just curious. And I'm curious for anybody watching this program. I want to hear about what you think of Slide It In. the UK mix versus the I know this is kind of off the tangent, but who cares? I want to hear what you think about between the mixes. Which ones do you like?
Well,
It's all about
both
talking music, so it doesn't
both
matter.
end up being one-offs.
Yeah,
Because
they all
they're all jettisoned by 87. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the American version of Slide It In
Mhm.
is still, I mean, compared to the 87,
oh yeah,
it's still tame.
Yeah.
Very, very tame.
87's very slick. Let's say that.
87 is very slick. It's big. It's got all the trappings of the big production of the day.
but compare
Right.
the US Slide It In to Come and Get It or Ready and Willin'.
Yeah, but
I mean, there's evolution. And they've improved.
but it's not as big a jump, right?
Mhm.
Now, I personally I love the 87 record and I love I love John Sykes. So for me, it's the album after that
yes, for a lot of people. Yeah.
that it kind of like, Steve Vai, no.
Right.
Well,
Sykes.
I love Steve Vai. I'll say that.
All right,
He's
now
a
we're
different-
gonna
he brings in
we're
a
gonna step
different.
on Grant's-
Well, he changes things. It becomes a Steve
Yeah.
Vai show.
Yeah, the Steve
Well,
Vai
and that's
show.
kind of the way I look at it.
Mhm.
There was this element that was it was all done beforehand. The songs were already there. It was, let's redo them and add the guy on top. And that often just does not work. If they're not part of it, Peter Kerr and I have talked about it with Battle Rages On. Ian Gillan was not there. Those songs were mostly written with Jolene Turner. And you bring in Gillan and he's like, okay, now I got to fit him into this and fit him into that. And it doesn't gel well. And you like them to be there. And that's why you want to have that follow-up record and say, okay, now write and contribute and put your stamp in it, not come in when it's already done and add whatever sprinkles you're going to add on the top.
Let me throw this out. Can't help myself. Now we're talking Steve Vai. How did you feel about Steve Vai coming in, taking over for Yingwei on Disturbing the Peace on Alcatraz? How do you feel about that? What? Hack's shaking his head. What?
No, I don't like that record. And I don't like Steve Vai and Alcatraz. I like Steve Vai. Hang on. I like Steve Vai on Steve Vai.
Okay.
Okay. I don't like
What
Steve
about
Vai
David Lee
in
Roth?
established
No?
bands. Okay. Actually, you know what? Yeah, he works. For that band, he works. But I don't think just my opinion, I don't think he worked in
No,
Alcatraz.
we're just talking music. It doesn't matter.
I don't think he worked in Alcatraz. He certainly did not work in Whitesnake. But I'll give you the David Lee Roth. That experiment worked. That chemistry worked.
Devil's Advocate says we could judge and maybe would judge Vai differently if he had been there for the writing sessions with Whitesnake. It would be different. Again, it was, here we go. This is what we do. This is what we have. Oh, Steve, fit in. Well, Steve's going to be Steve. And it wouldn't behoove Coverdale to tame him to the point where people can't recognize him as Vai, because then the marquee name doesn't mean anything.
But Coverdale must have proved everything. He must have liked what he heard.
Well, he did. And again, it's, commerciality. He's following up this monstrous record. Well, what's the next step? Bring in the next, the biggest guitar slinger there is. Bring in that guy. Oh, now he's in your band. Now you hope that just picks everything up and you can maintain at a minimum and not drop, so much as he did from 87 to Slip of the Tongue, which of course caused him to just pull the pin in every grenade he had and just blow up everything again. So just, it's what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Cool. All right. God, now that we went on a tangent, Hack, that was your pick, right?
No, that was mine. Slide
That
It
was
In.
your pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Pete's.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna. I
It's
think.
all about talking music. It doesn't matter.
I think I'm gonna guess what I think Hack's next one is, but
All right, Hack,
I
let's throw it over to
probably
you.
not.
What's your next one?
Probably not. This album. Then there was only one album that they did with the four members, and then consequently they've made albums minus people, and that never really. They're not even on the radar. Okay. And I recently did a video called 5 Albums That Make Me Happy. And this album, from the time I was, I don't know, first time I heard it, 14 or whatever, love this record to death. And there is a Thin Lizzy line that goes through this record too. And I'm talking about the Sex Pistols. Never mind the Bullocks. Love, love, love this record.
Sure.
I mean, incredible, years later. I mean, they basically their whole career is really this one album. And what's crazy about it is the only guy that knew how to play, right, was the bass player whose name escapes me right now.
Glenn Matlock.
Glenn Matlock, thank you. And Paul Cook, he was kind of, already learning how to play the drums, but Steve Jones was basically learning how to play. And the guitar on this record and Steve Jones' rhythm playing, I mean, there's little noodles and little bluesy Chuck Berry things here and there. But man, oh man, like the tone of the guitar he's got on this, the production of this record, I mean, it's phenomenal. To this day, this record still holds up. When I put this album on, man, I got a big ass smile on my face. Love it. Holiday in the Sun, No Feelings, God Save the Queen, Bodies, Anarchy in the UK. When I was learning how to play guitar, I cut my teeth on this record because if all you knew was a bar chord, you could pretty much play this entire album. And that's how I learned how to play, was learning these songs. And a lot of them are real similar. Okay. The same chords, slight variation, like God Save the Queen and Anarchy in the UK are pretty much the same song. But anyways, but that aside, the songs still hold up. And John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, lyrically, I mean, come on. This guy, he's some kid, whatever, can't even really sing, but it works. It just works. And it's incredible. Love this record. And where the Thin Lizzy lineage goes with this is after the band broke up, they actually played with the members of Thin Lizzy. They called themselves the Greedies, and they put out some singles in the UK. There was a holiday one or something they put out. So, yeah, absolutely love this record.
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't Steve just playing as Les Paul Custom through the Marshall? I mean, it's not really
actually Fender.
He's playing it through what? What is he playing it through?
I'm not sure which was it a twin? I'm not sure, but
I think it was a twin. Now that
the recording of this, from what I understand, he was basically playing a Les Paul through his Fender cranked. But it's just, I mean, what an amazing record. The production, like everything. It's just, the songs are so damn catchy.
If that was a twin, though, you probably couldn't even stand in that room.
No, because that's the only way to overdrive them like that.
You got to crank it.
Oh yeah,
there's so much clean headroom. You got to crank them.
Yeah, because it's what, 100-watt amp, isn't it? Twin 100-watt.
You can toast marshmallows off the tubes.
Yeah, yeah.
But you cannot. When you listen to that record, there is nobody that sounds like that. It is. You know who it is, and Johnny Rotten's. The songs are melodic. The songs are all great.
There.
I think you have to admire the naivete of it, the simple approach of it, the untrainedness of it, and you just go what you feel. And I think that can sometimes be the most authentic.
Yeah.
Ann Wilson once said, and you take it with a grain of salt, she used to say, training takes the rock and roll out of your voice. Now, people will I don't believe she's talking about breathing and things like that. She's like, well, if you hold the note this, and it's like, no, there's something to be said about opening your mouth and just letting it rip.
Mhm.
There's an authenticity to that.
I mean, I mean, these guys were thrown together, right? I mean, this is Malcolm McLaren's project, right? And he had Steve Jones and Glenn Matlock, and they picked Johnny Rotten and out of because the way the guy dressed, and he hung around this shop, and he sort of put this sort of ramshackle thing together, and look what they came up with. And I mean, this was like the punk breakthrough album. This launched punk in the UK. I mean, this was it. Like, launched 1,000 bands, right?
You know what? You have a good point, Hag. It's funny, but people don't seem to point this out. Malcolm McLaren put them together. There's not much. Well, the Monkees were put together for a TV show, but the Monkees ended up played all their stuff eventually on Headquarters and stuff.
Yeah.
But everybody, worships this record. It's a good record. I don't care how you came together.
Exactly.
But you could easily throw in that. Well, they were a manufactured group, and people kind of. I'm not saying it's not great, but people always shit all over the Monkees back in the day. But hell, you could shit on the Sex Pistols, but it is a great record. I have whatever Malcolm McLaren was doing, he knew exactly what to do with these guys.
Yeah. I mean,
sometimes lightning, it gets in a bottle. So.
Yeah,
they fired Glenn Matlock, and then they get.
But didn't Glenn write most of the? He either co-wrote. He had a lot to do with all the songwriting.
Yeah, there's even rumors that he didn't even play the bass on the record.
I think
there's rumors that Steve Jones played the bass on this record, but
but Glenn Matlock could play. He was a musician.
He was a real player. Yeah, he was the most the most musically inclined person at the time, right?
Yeah.
But there's something. Steve Jones, there's certain guitar players that just have this. I don't know, this thing, this touch, this mojo, where everything they play just sounds like magic. Like, I mean, because again, these songs are really bare bones, simple tunes, whatever. But if I hit a D chord, a power chord, and Steve Jones hits a power chord, his power chord is going to sound 100 times better than mine.
Yeah, it's on the fingers.
Something in the hands. It's some kind of magic that he has.
Look at Ace Frehley. I'm going to throw Ace Frehley out there.
Example.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people bitch about Ace Frehley that he's not all that good. Okay. You let Ace Frehley play a solo, you know exactly who it is, and he knows how to play the solo. Look at all that old Kiss stuff. He knows how to approach the solo. He knows how to end the solo. And it's like a perfectly formed, it's like a song within a song. All his solos are very catchy.
His phrasing is exceptional.
His phrasing, there you go,
his
Peter.
Vibrato.
Oh,
He's got a touch, and like I'm a huge Kiss fan. I play guitar because of Kiss, okay, and I play Les Pauls because of Ace Frehley.
There's my wall.
We have an Ace Frehley fanboy on the program, ladies and gentlemen.
I got things back here that you can't see, but anyways, Ace. I mean, I've learned a lot of Ace Frehley solos, and they don't sound anything like Ace Frehley. He just has some. Again, he's one of those guys. He's got this feel, this intangible thing that just everything he plays is magic. Now, I'm talking like 70s Ace Frehley, not current Ace Frehley.
Yeah, but when I saw him like in 2019, was it? He was playing. He was fine. He could play all of it.
Oh, was he? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I saw him up in Cleveland at the Blues. Oh, help me. Shit. Well, brain problem. Saw him in 2019 up in Cleveland. It was packed. It was fine. He was great. We loved it. A lot of people in that. It was oversold, I think. There was no oxygen. I almost passed out. I had to go sit out in the lobby because it was just so packed and hot. Gosh.
The best I saw Ace Frehley play when he was solo was probably I would say it's got to be probably at this point, maybe 10, 15, maybe 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
where I was standing like right in front of him where I could literally scratch his nose.
Mm-hmm.
And he just played all the solos that I grew up with and absolutely loved. And he had it. And that was when he was, and there was bottles of water. He was just drinking water. I think that was one of the,
He
the
was
moments of
sober.
sobriety, right?
Let's
And holy shit, man.
Let's
But I
think
saw
about
him
this.
later in Buffalo and he was terrible. So,
Well, it's hit and miss.
Let's think
Yeah.
about this for a second. I think it's fair to say, and we need to distinguish between potential
Mm-hmm.
and what he actually had done earlier. I think everybody would agree that he didn't live up to his potential, that he could have grown much more as a player, blah, blah, blah. But at the time, what he was doing from those early records up through Love Gun era, there's no reason to have a cover guy come in and play all those solos note for note
Mm-hmm.
if they weren't good solos. If they weren't good solos, they'd just let him do what Bruce did. Now, Bruce was given the opportunity to play aces or not play aces, and he chose for the most part not to. But I think a lot of fans, myself included, were like, hey, you know what? Hotter Than Hell just kind of doesn't sound right without those solos. And you're like, okay, they, like I said, they were perfectly phrased. They were melodic. He did all of the elements a great soloist does. He will do a riff on up by the nut, and then he'll do it at the octave. And he'll go back. He'll do one here, and he'll recapitulate it down on a lower string. This is classic solo technique. He knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And holy crap, did his guitar sound great.
yeah.
Well, that's a distinct sound. Now, I'm going to throw Rick Nilsson a Cheap Trick, though. You listen
Yeah,
to a lot of
there's
those
another one.
later Cheap Trick records where the production is, don't get me started. You know I'm going to go on a rampage.
Right.
Those Tom Werman albums, you listen to those, and Rick Nielsen sounds like Rick Nielsen when he plays live.
Yes.
Okay. You start listening to the Roy Thomas Baker stuff. You listen to the Todd Rundgren stuff. Where'd Rick Nielsen go? I've talked about this before. It drives me crazy. I think Jack Douglas knew what to do with Rick Nielsen. I think that Tom Werman knew what to do with Rick Nielsen, but we lost that Cheap Trick sound. A lot of the Cheap Trick sound has to do with Rick Nielsen's guitar tone. He is very distinct. Is he like a great player? Oh, he's adequate. But his songwriting chops back in the day were absolutely top notch. And he knew what to play with the song. And every time he played a solo, you went, oh, that's Rick Nielsen. They lost all that later.
And here's the running joke in the musicians world. Everybody talks about gear. They say, oh, I can get this, especially in the drum world. They say, oh, I can sound like Bonham. There's videos all over YouTube. You can sound like Bonham. Buy the right drums, get the right cymbals, blah, 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 blah. There's a story. A jazz guy was playing, and a saxophonist, and he came off the stage, and a fan came up to him, and he said, man, that saxophone sounds so killer tonight. And he takes the guy, and he points to the stage. He goes, yeah? How does it sound now?
I heard that same story, but it was Larry Carlton.
Yeah, Dave Weckl said it. The point is the instrument doesn't play itself. It's the person, their touch, their feel, their soul, their heartbeat, how much pressure, how much little pressure, everything. That's why we're all so unique. And guys like Ace and guys, look, John Sykes, like him or dislike him, it's John.
He's unique. You can tell it's him.
It's him.
Right.
And to be unique is sometimes the most challenging, but should always be a musician's goal, to sound like you.
And I've always brought this up, even though he's a good guitar player, may he rest in peace. Ronnie Montrose could have been anybody. Yeah, he was technically good. I don't think he really had a sound.
No, I don't think so.
He would have been a great studio musician because he could have fit on any record and just kind of blended right in with everybody else.
Right.
But
it's
But-
we were talking about really, I think, is like character, right? Character
Oh, yeah.
in their playing, right?
Right.
I mean, there's certain guys, and I'm just gonna talk about like the sort of ace era guys that just had that touch that just sounded unbelievable. Billy Gibbons would be another
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
Angus Young is another one. I mean, these guys are not playing crazy, flashy stuff, right? But what they're playing, every note counts and every note hits, and it's the phrasing, it's the bending, it's the micro bends, it's the touch, it's all that stuff.
Kossoff, Marty Bear. I mean, it just
You can go on and on, right? And it's
I'll
just
go
that
on
skill.
record. Angus Young has the best woody Marshall tone on the planet. It's got that woody tone. And when I hear like a guitar going through a Marshall, that's the sound I would want. It's
There is
very
nothing-
woody sounding.
there's nothing more fascinating than the behind the scenes look of how they tour and the maintenance that they do on Angus's rig. The number of Marshalls they've got, and it's a traveling Marshall repair shop.
Yeah.
I've
Those are all
never
old.
seen anything.
But he's
like
not that. He's just overdriven though. He's
Yeah.
not really
Not a lot of
distorted.
gain.
He's just no. It's just.
Not a lot of gain. It's volume. I
it's
mean, I see
perfect
guys
tone,
play.
perfect. Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, as a guitar player, sort of every, when a dirty tone, Marshall tone, it's the Back in Black sound. That's like for me the
Yep.
the top of the heap, right?
Mhm.
And when I've seen guys play AC/DC, it's like, what's with all the gain, dude? Very little gain. He's hitting it hard, and it's volume. Very little gain. That's the key. That's the key. You got to overdrive you got to make the amp work hard. Pedals aren't going to do it for you.
No.
You got to
It
work
sounds
that amp.
fake. Sounds
Scott Ian
fake.
says it all the time because he is just the biggest Malcolm fan. Malcolm had maybe the most aggressive picking hand. I mean,
Yeah.
he would push his fingers right through the strings. Well, that affects tonality.
Mhm.
And you can get an edge. And look, when you watch somebody like Blackmore in his prime, his hand will
Another
he can-
good tone. Great.
Oh, my favorite of all time.
Yeah.
He can go from a whisper, and then he can just chainsaw you with all just by changing his volume knob on his guitar.
Mhm.
He doesn't have any pedals in front of him. He's got nothing.
Yeah.
No wah, no nothing. Now, he used for a long time, and once, especially in Rainbow, he'd use a tape machine. He'd use a reel-to-reel and overdrive it like a preamp. But he's using 300-watt modified Marshalls to begin with.
Yeah.
So he's not, but it's a Strat, a Chord, and a Marshall. Done.
And a single coil Strat. And how do you get
Yeah.
that fattest sound out of a freaking single coil?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I forget who it was. Somebody was with Eddie Van Halen, and his rig happened to be set up. Another guitar player, and I forget who it was. He said, "Oh, is your rig hooked up?" He says, "Yeah," and he said he tried to play it. It was nothing but squeals, barks, feedback. He couldn't get a single note out of it. And I promise you, any other person grabbed Ted's rig in the '70s with all those super twins
Yeah.
fired up.
Birdland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no way you're getting a clean a tone to come out of it. It's just I mean, that's
Wheelie.
it. There's
But that
Self-feedback.
Birdland in Ted's hands and his
Yeah.
setup, come on.
was an
Brilliant.
assault weapon.
It was a weapon.
It was glorious.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
he
those
knew
guys
what
are
to
the
do
real-
with it.
And that's what separates the real deal from the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've almost went an hour and we've turned this whole discussion into tonality and guitars. But that's
I
okay.
can talk guitars forever. I love
Me too.
guitar.
See? Well, of course, he's guitar hack. So
That's
we could
right.
talk about that all day.
Yeah.
But anybody have anything else before we wrap this one up? Anything else you want to mention?
Check out my channel.
Oh, there you go.
Check out my channel. Graham mentioned it earlier. Guitar Hack. Go over there. We got all kinds of album rankings and reviews and weekly shows and original music and if you're a guitarist, I got all kinds of guitar reviews and amps and pedals and all kinds of stuff on there. So
Well, there you go.
Well, check it out.
that out. Please subscribe. Go over there and check out the content. I know Martin and Peter are over there once a month. right?
Yep, they're
Once a
coming
month?
next week. Next
There you
week.
go. So check it out if you already have it.
You have
Peter,
to keep saying Pardo because obviously people aren't getting confused with me.
Peter Jones is over there playing guitar too.
No, I bet. Pete Pardo.
Pete Pardo. You should know
Pete
that by
Pardo.
now, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Let's wrap this one up. So this was a great discussion. I hope you got something out of it. We talked a lot of guitars, but you're going to get that over here. Guitar hack and
That's
everything.
okay.
All right, but if you like to be on these conversations, you could be on here. We have a Patreon if you'd like to support us that way. A lot of great conversations over there. We also have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. We'd appreciate that. We also just like money in general because we do this because we want to talk music. We're not looking to make a bazillion dollars. We're just all about trying to turn you on to stuff. And any of the stuff that we talked about today, go and check out. If you know it, leave a comment about it. We want to hear about it. Other than that, what's next on the Contrarians? There is something. What am I working on? I'm editing the show about something. I can't remember. Peter Jones, do you remember? It was the one show we haven't put up yet. Oh boy.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't on that one. You just you had that one a couple days ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on that, ladies and gentlemen. So that'll be up tomorrow. Of course, it won't matter because this won't be up yet. So anyway, have a good week. Have a good weekend if we don't see you. And I want to thank Guitar Hack. I want to thank Peter Jones for this discussion. Hey, subscribe to Hack's channel. Leave us a thumbs up here, and we will see you next time. All right, everybody. Have a good one.
Cheers.